Hope everyone was able to catch up and grab a snack and hopefully meet some new friends today during the break. It is my absolute pleasure to announce our keynote speaker, Stuart McClure, a true pioneer in the world of cybersecurity. Stuart was the CEO of Cylance, the AI-driven cybersecurity company which was acquired by BlackBerry for $1.4 billion. And a special shout out to the Canadians in the room who know how great BlackBerry was. Long before AI became today's buzzword, Stuart was already applying it to solve some of the most complex challenges in security, helping organizations stay ahead of increasingly sophisticated threats. Today, as AI continues to transform every industry, there's no one better to help us understand both the opportunity and the responsibility that comes with it. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Stuart.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining and attending. Hopefully I don't have double bubble here. All right, well, a quick survey, I think, of everybody would be helpful for me this morning. How many of you in the audience have been on an airplane? I figured I'd get full participation. Okay, now keep your hands up. How many have been over the Pacific Ocean on an airplane? Okay. Now, how many of you have done it in the middle of the night? Okay. Now, how many times when you were doing that did a hole open up in the plane and pull out people? I knew, I always win that game. Yeah, so look, today what I want to be able to share with you is a bit of my journey and the why. For those of you who know me, profit is always my second or tertiary or fourth agenda when I build something. I always, right or wrong or indifferent, begin and anchor on mission. And it's that mission that I was gifted many, many years ago. So today, I want to share that story a bit and then tell you what I'm doing next, so that you get a sense of the big challenge that I have, and I need everyone's help. Because this is probably one of the biggest challenges, not just that I've set out to achieve, but that the world has. So I might fail spectacularly, but that's what I love about it. All right, so you probably don't recognize anybody on there except maybe the cherub in the middle, but that is me at age 19. And that is the Red Carpet Club. I wasn't supposed to be drinking, by the way, but don't tell anybody. But that was the Red Carpet Club in Honolulu, Hawaii. My mother is on the far left. My brother is to my right, our left. He was 10 years younger, is 10 years younger. And the rest of everybody that was there was in business class on this flight. So as you can see on the right-hand side, the individual with the shiner, he was hit with debris. The gentleman behind him, believe it or not, was an aviation attorney. The worst thing you could have on a plane accident. And all of us sat there waiting for our first flight after the accident. So we were all very nervous. I even think my brother sneaked a couple of sips of the bourbon sour that someone was drinking next to him. Anyway, so for that, to give you a little bit of more details on what happened, basically a 20 by 40 foot hole opened up at 23,000 feet, okay? I was in row 41. It sucked out not just bags, chairs, people, but pretty much everything that wasn't bolted down. So if you were standing there as a flight attendant looking what the heck happened, you would be looking at this at 23,000 feet, the engines. And much of the debris went into engine 3 and engine 4. The who is what matters to me. So who didn't make it. And these are the souls, the 9 souls that did not. And many of them were Kiwis and Aussies. But the heroes in all of this were Kevin and Susan Campbell in the top right, who are the parents of Lee Campbell, who passed away that night. And believe it or not, we were offered the upgrade seats to business class. So my mother would have been in that seat, which was, what was that? 13G, and I would have been up in the first row, is what we believe as we got those tickets and we were sort of scrambling to try and move from 41 up to the business class. And in this last split second of it taking way too long for us to get ready, I turned to my mom and I go, why are we moving? Like, we have a whole row here in economy, let's just stay. And it was honestly that choice, which I wish I could tell you I had some sort of, presence from, the heavens and the cosmos. I didn't. It was just gut instinct, right? It's all like intuition. All right, so why did this happen? After we got on the ground, everybody thought it was a bomb, obviously, right? Lockerbie had just happened like a month before, 2 months before. And so we all sat in the terminal for the entire day, getting interviewed by FBI agents. But to discover what truly had happened, they had to go and recover the door, the cargo door. And at first, of course, as you probably would imagine, the NTSB and the FAA said, yep, just typical air infrastructure failure. It's an older model, so many hours and so many flights. And they wanted to resolve it with a simple sort of wave of the hand. But remember Susan and Lee Campbell as parents. They were tenacious. They decided that they weren't going to accept the basic answer of what really happened, the why. And they set on a path all around the US, they are Kiwis, to find the truth. And only because of their persistent investigatory skills and capabilities and just never giving up did they actually get to the bottom of it. There were 2 fundamental flaws in the design of that 747-100. The first was that as the electrical wiring from the cockpit would hang, and with multiple opens and closings of the door, it would often push up and bang up against the metal frame. So the wiring on the wires, or the sheathing on the wires, became frayed, which caused a short, right? Because electrical touches the metal and you're pretty much shorting that thing. But, of course, the Boeing engineers that designed this are no dummies, They said, we have to have a hooking mechanism. So if something does happen to this door in mid-flight, it can hold it. Now, Boeing engineers are incredibly smart, incredibly intelligent, but are they perfect? No. So the door itself and the frame itself is made of metal, right? Steel. What do you think the hooking device is made of? Don't say plastic, although that'd be a decent choice. Aluminum. So what happens to aluminum when steel runs through it? It pretty much melts like butter. So that's what happened. The door opened in mid-flight. It blew right past the aluminum latching, which you can see right there in the circle, and the door opened, despite a design that was supposed to prevent it. So all of us survived, 346, 9 did not, and this was the chaos that sort of came through it. Now, I don't know how people had enough wherewithal to take pictures, to be honest with you. I did not have the wherewithal to go and look for my camera, but some folks did, and luckily they did, so you could capture what was happening. So for about 19 minutes, the plane simply went down, we thought, over the Pacific Ocean and was going to ditch into the water. But thank goodness the amazing pilot had better ideas. So I was gifted with the pleasure of actually giving him a call. I got his phone number. He just retired. It was his second to last flight before retirement. I called him in his Lake Tahoe home, caught him, and I said, believe it or not, I'm one of the passengers on Flight 811. I really thank you so much for what you did. I don't know how you did it. Like all the news articles tell us that there was just no way. It seems impossible. But I knew if I talked to the pilot, the engineers in effect, you would give me an answer. And his answer was, Stuart, I have no idea. So I said, well, what does that mean? You have no idea. He's like, well, when we got down on the ground, they pulled the cockpit flight recorder, which has all the telemetry of the plane, all the decisions made by the pilots, and we put it into a simulator in Honolulu. And we spent a week, both myself, my co-pilot, and an independent pilot, simulating that flight to attempt to get the flight to land as we got it to land that night. And in over 200 simulations, every flight landed in the ocean. So of course, once I heard that, I didn't need to hear much more. I said, okay, thank you. I know what I need to do now. So that really was, I think, the kernel, the seed for me to think about how do we prevent the preventable. That was clearly a preventable problem. I mean, nothing was like magic. It wasn't like, a laser came out from an alien spaceship and burned a hole through probably couldn't have prevented that, but this was highly preventable. So why couldn't I apply that to the world of technology? And that's what I set on my path to do. So the first company that I started here in Orange County is Foundstone in 1999, right out of Irvine, right down by the Spectrum. And that was the sole mission of the company, was to find vulnerabilities in computer systems and networks and prevent them by knowing they're there and either fixing them with patches or preventing them through configuration changes and layers of security. Then that company was sold to McAfee, 2004. McAfee was a perfect alignment for me because it was now even broader, not just looking at sort of network and system vulnerabilities, but full stack. I eventually took over the office of the CTO globally. We sold to Intel at the time. And I left in 2012 because I realized I had gone as far as I could with McAfee and the entire antivirus industry. So antivirus, as you probably know by now, it's a look in the rear view mirror to drive. It does not look through the front windshield. What I mean by that is the only way that you can be protected is if your neighbor was hacked. That's it. If your neighbor was hacked, then fine. We'll forensically understand why. We'll build a signature detection, and we'll give it to you. And hopefully in time, before the bad guys hack you. So this is a trailing indicator system like there's no tomorrow. And I knew that there was a way to predict and prevent this stuff. And at the time, I didn't know it was AI. I knew decision tree learning. I knew computer learning because I had been gone to college for computer science and realized this might be the way we can actually predict and prevent forever, not just a point in time, but for years in advance. And so that's what Cylance was all about. We raised about, 166 million of raw venture capital. We had 100 million in debt, but never really used any of it. And all of that started to explode. The concept of applying AI predictively, preventatively, at the endpoint, at the phone, to be able to prevent not just today's attacks, but tomorrow's unknown attacks, really started to take off. We were just about to go public when BlackBerry came in and promised a synergy that would allow us to take AI down into the embedded world. So embedded cars, embedded medical devices, embedded operational technology, OT, right? All of that was one of the biggest promises and why it made sense for us to merge. Now, you see me holding, does anybody know what that is in that picture? Any guesses? It's a little antenna, right? It's called a Yagi antenna. It's a directional antenna. So if you point it at something, you'll pick up signal, RF signal, for many, many more feet. We used that on stage to hack into an insulin pump. And this was in 2012, and we were prolific in going after hardware vulnerabilities. That vulnerability was a feature inside of that particular insulin pump. And that feature was present on that device for years before we found it, and a good 10 years after we discovered it. Not only that, that vulnerability was present in every device from that same manufacturer. Neurobrain stimulators, implantable cardiac defibrillators, everything. So my mission was always to expose, to educate, and to bring people onto the mission of protecting and preventing. And wrote many, many books on this topic called Hacking Exposed. So, by the way, is anybody willing to say that they've gotten hacked before? Anybody? The brave ones? Okay, good. All right, yeah. And, identity fraud also counts, like I think pretty much all. All right. So, I'm also a philosophy student all my life, ever since college. Aristotle once said, at their core, all problems are information problems. Reason from what is true, not from what is told. And man, wouldn't you love to exist in a world like that? We don't live in a world like that, to say the least. We are triggered by our bias, our unconscious cognitive bias. And why do we trigger like that? Well, because we've spent years and years and years surviving and maybe thriving with that model. We just trigger on an instinct. We trigger on an intuition. And we say, that's got to be the right way to go. And why wouldn't you? I mean, look, my intuition literally saved us. I know that in my DNA on that flight. So why wouldn't you just say, well, I need to just trust my instinct all the time now? You can't. It's the deadly mistake. So this is what we call first principles. Has anybody heard of that concept? When you take a problem and you break it down to the first principles, you're looking for the root cause. And it's only there, based on truth and information that you build and experience, can you start to build upon it. And that's the concept today where I'm going. So I've spent my whole career fighting cyber vulnerabilities. Now I'm taking that to the human vulnerability. From cyber to human. So the state of AI today is, many of you I'm sure use AI all the time. How many use it like every day? Okay. How many use it like once a week? Okay. All right. How many don't use it? Actually, that would be a good one. Okay, good. Okay. Nothing wrong with that, I think. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like, fantastic. I want to know you. Okay? But today's AI is nothing. Now, let me back up. The AI we built at Cylance is very different than the AI that's being built today, or that's being infused with trillions of dollars, okay? The AI back then was very simple. It was a precursor to today's LLMs, but it was specialized. So we built a deep learning model on malicious and a deep learning model on safe. That was it. We had 2 models. Then when something came into a computer, we said, well, does it look malicious or does it look safe? If it looks malicious, we block it. If it looks safe, we allow it. That's it. That was it. Simple. Very complex, but very simple in the end. Today, what they use, the same deep learning models, really, a little extended, but the same concept, but on language. That's it. Words, right? That's it. So it can predict words incredibly well. And what I call it, it's not really artificial intelligence because of that. It's artificial knowledge. And once I got that sort of framed in my brain, I realized that this is a big problem. If we are leveraging artificial knowledge and expecting it to be intelligence, we are perpetuating the same bias and cognition that has failed us in the past. So what we're seeing in the space, you can see it here in the graph, on the left, all LLMs are general knowledge. They're not wisdom, they're not experience, they're not even intelligence, to be honest with you. And because of that, and they've all trained from the same data, so ultimately they all give the same answer. So what happens? You regress to the mean. So all of our answers, all of our actions, all of our suggestions, ways to fix problems, problem solve, to troubleshoot, they're all going to go to the mean, which is fine. There's value in the mean, but it's the unique alpha, the left and the right of the bell curve, is where you get your true creation, your true uniqueness, your true originality, and the true newness of life. And that comes only today from the human brain. So you probably recognize something like this, right? A Zoom meeting. And if you just take a moment and look at each pane, it's probably pretty real. There are people that are off video, that you don't even know if they're listening, who knows what they're doing. There are people that are in different time zones, like it's midnight. But my poor India team, like, I don't know how they do it. They're amazing. But they've got to be a little tired, right? And we want to work around that. People are distracted, rightly so, competing priorities. Or maybe you just defer to the highest paid officer that's on the call. Hey, Bill's on the call. Whatever Bill says, that's what we do. Like, that's the best idea. Bill's got the best ideas. I think that's true, actually, Bill. Or the loudest voice. Somebody's on there and just like, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do this, we need to do that. Oh, yeah, what Bill said, or Jimmy, or Janie, that sounds like a great idea. You're not getting a full engagement of true human intelligence. All right. Does anybody disagree? And this, for me, as the CEO, this is what I see. I see a price tag. I'm like, wait, how much did I just pay? How much did I spend in that hour? Did I get my money's worth on that? No. So this is the problem that we want to solve for. Now, the how. How do we solve for this? Well, as I've mentioned before, I don't believe artificial intelligence, which is really artificial knowledge, is absolutely not cognition, and it's not human cognition. It's not thinking. That's why, by the way, do you know, Jan LeCun? Does anybody know Jan LeCun? He's one of the more famous anti-AI guys, okay? So he started a new company. And there's others like thinking machines and stuff like that because it doesn't think. AI doesn't think. All these new big companies that have raised billions of dollars are trying to solve for the fact that AI today does not think. It just regurgitates. What if, though, you could actually replicate how you think? How each of you thinks individually. And that the way that you think is truly unique. Not just from the unique experiences that everyone's had in their lives, but neurologically. You have a different pathway. You've built different neurological sequences to solve for problems, to answer questions, to like coffee or tea, or dogs or cats, or the color blue. So what if you could do that? Well, we've done this. with enough information, we can actually map to the quadrillion space of your mind, and in such a way that we can actually replicate how you think. So in a meeting, you can be 100% present. Your interests, your concerns, your objections, all of it can be accounted for inside of that discussion. So that when you do meet in the human form, the vast variety of optionality for any sort of problem can already be researched, can already be vetted, and then ultimately a consensus and a collaborative decision can be made. Now all you need is the humans to agree. All of us to be now held accountable for that decision. And that's the big part of what we want to solve for. So when you think to yourself, well, why can't, just AI do that? Like, well, doesn't it have memories today? Like it remembers what I asked it yesterday, remember what I asked the day before, and can't it pull like preferences and styles and things like this? It can do some basic work, maybe 25 to 35% accuracy, deriving, inferring how you think. But it's not enough for cognition. And our models now, which we build from scratch, are above 90% in 3 ways. So the first is known recall. So if you tell it like, well, I like dogs more than cats, then it'll recall it, okay? Like, yeah, Stuart, do you like dogs or cats? I like dogs. I mean, I like cats too, by the way. I'm not a cat. So that's known recall. Second is likeness. So how I present myself, how I communicate, where my mission comes through, and engagements with people, things of this nature, that comes through. So likeness, 10 out of 10. The last is unknown recall. So any system like this needs to be able to think like you. So if I've never told it, that I've never said the word dog to it or cat to it, and I ask it, are you more of a dog or cat guy? It'll answer it. It'll answer it. And that's in the 90th percentile. So it's that unknown recall, which is today no one has done. No one. So we're super proud about this. And we'll be launching this in the next probably 3 to 6 weeks for an internal MVP. If anybody's open and willing, I'd love to have you on board. But we have proven it time and time again that we can be truly, truly unique as individuals, and we can do that. We can measure that and prove that in every way, especially vis-a-vis the real human and then vis-a-vis the common LLMs that are out there today. Because where I think all of this is going to go, if we can do this truly, is we will move away from this hierarchical decision-making system that we have, right? How do decisions get made in a company typically, right? You say, I've got a sales problem, I'm going to ask my chief revenue officer. I've got a technical problem, I'm going to talk to my head of engineering. If I've got a customer problem, I'm going to talk to my head of customer success. And it's going to go down that trail. But maybe the talent that's in that group can't solve the problem definitively. And you need an open mind to take in anybody's ideas. And that's where I believe this hive mind world will start to form, where you get decisions at compute speed based on the institutional knowledge of your company or team that then can allow you to accelerate, increase productivity, and ultimately increase your success rate. So all of that comes together. But many of you, and by the way, how many of you have friends, I won't ask you about yourself, that are scared about your jobs, or friends that are scared about your jobs? Okay, this is fantastic. So this slide is for you. So if you know my books, you know I try to debunk myths as much as humanly possible. And I actually have a quarterly webinar that I do, podcast, called AI Exposed. And I expose the limitations of AI at every quarter. And let me share with you 4 universal myths of AI that are now starting to show up as real. The first, and probably the biggest reason why humans will always need to be in the mix, How can you possibly hold AI accountable for a bad decision? Right? So Amazon, AWS, did you hear about this one? Right? They laid off all of these developers, thousands of them, allowed AI to do pulls and commits on their code. For the first time in the history of AWS, they were down for like full 6 hours. That doesn't happen. They're like 99.99999% uptime, okay? They had to hire a whole bunch of humans back. That doesn't get the headlines, by the way, but the letting of them go does. Second, you need that experience. This is just knowledge. It's just artificial knowledge. It is not wisdom or experience. It's not all of the scars and the lessons that we've learned from our past. And what happens is that's why you get hallucinations. That's why you get errors. And hallucinations are very real. And unless you're checking it, you'll never know. You just think it's the smartest thing ever and you just trust it. Third is the context. And this is, anyone know this one? Yeah, Marie Antoinette, right? So talk about being tone deaf, right? Like, well, just let him eat cake. Like, stop him from storming the castle. It cannot read the room. It has no real memory, although some of that is getting solved for to a degree, and I think it will be solved for in the world of LLMs. And then lastly, there is no mission. AI just takes orders. That's all it does. It has no spontaneous agency whatsoever. So I'll leave you with this thought. Desmond Tutu, there comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river, and we need to start going upstream and finding out why they're falling in. I love our detect and respond muscles. They are strong. But we can apply it to the prevention as well and prevent 99% of that which we detect and respond. And with that, I will hopefully inspire you to predict the failure and prevent the fall. If you want more on me, I'm at stuartmcclure.ai. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was something.
So I know you guys were really, happy and excited before I got on stage. I don't know what happened.
So this piece was, I had a couple of things to tee up for Stuart, but I have a feeling there's some questions that the audience wants to ask too. But maybe just to get this rolling, you've innovated here, you've created here meaning Orange County.
Yeah.
What's our faulty latch, in terms of the innovation community here?
Well, I think a couple things. The first is what I heard earlier on the panel, which is a lot of great minds here, a lot of great ideation, innovation, entrepreneurship, but not a lot of deep pockets that are willing to risk their money in the venture space. That's why I'm heading to Seattle tonight. I was in New York last week. I was in the Bay Area the week before. I'll be back in the Bay Area in a couple weeks. I'm going to Boston after that. I love all the investors here. They're wonderful people. They simply don't have the risk appetite or the deep pockets. I mean, they're not raising $3 billion funds. That's what these people are doing. And they're doing it every 6 months. They're willing to throw, 1, 10, 100 million at 100 deals a year. And there's no one down here that can do that. It's a volume thing and it's a risk appetite thing. That's what I've seen my whole career here. And I've tried every single company. I've done all the rounds.
And part of the reason we bumped into each other on a flight 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I was heading to New York, you were.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Both looking for capital, for you for your company and me for some of the companies that we support.
Yeah, I've always said if we had 2 or 3 sort of institutional tier ones come and be birthed from here, tier 1 investors come and birth there, and we would be off and running because the talent is real and the innovation ideas are real. That's the sad state of it. Yeah.
So that's one of the faulty latches?
That's one of the faulty latches. The other is, and again, this is all, waves that come and go, right? So you remember the dot-com wave? It was like, you're not spending enough. I remember I was pitching in the Valley for Foundstone, and the very first investor that we bumped up against said, oh, you're not spending enough. And we were trying to raise like $10 million. He's like, oh, you need to raise a lot more money than that. Like, I'm looking at pro forma, you need to triple your marketing spend. Like, why would I do that? I don't need to do that. But to get money, I needed to do that. I needed to tell them that, even though it was disingenuous. And it's these trends that you have to follow, unfortunately. So the current trend today, of course, is AI. And the second part of that trend is they tend to value PhDs over practitioners. And they tend to value those that are first-time founders, I'll put it to you that way. Not the old guys like me, unfortunately. And that's the truth. And it's okay. It's just one more challenge and hurdle that we got to jump over. But at the same time, those are real. You have to follow the trends, unfortunately, because investors invest on FOMO. They invest on, hey, their buddy at such and such is getting in on this deal. Do you want to get in on this deal? And that kind of thing. And they don't want to miss a deal. So that's the other side of it. I do think, though, the talent, the folks that graduate from here, they leave quickly because they don't see the potential to, let's say, start with this company, the startup, that can get fully funded. And if it doesn't work out, they can walk across the street to another fully funded company. And so they have career resiliency. They don't have that here, really. They have it in the Bay Area. I mean, you could literally walk around the corner in a WeWork space and be like, oh, I just got fired. Are you looking for people? And they'll be like, oh yeah, absolutely, we're hiring right now. So that I think it's density too, and the problem of scarcity.
Yeah. So to that point, you're almost moving from underfunded company to underfunded company.
That's right. Exactly. Which is hard. You really have to have high resilience, high adaptability, and high risk taking. And probably not a family, or it makes it challenging. So those are probably the two, I think, biggest.
And I will say age is all relative. So to me, Stu, you're young.
Thank you. Thank you.
What about, before we take a question from the audience or so, what about the aspect, I think you touched on it a little bit, but there is this fear that AI is going to take jobs.
Yeah, it is.
And my sense always is that for every one it may eliminate, it's going to create another one someplace else, or maybe even a multiplier. And I love your reversion to the mean. So
yeah.
I always believe in that. When I'm watching a game and my team's getting blown out by someone else because they're shooting 15 for 15 from the foul line, you just know maybe the second half's going to be a little bit different. That team's going to revert to the mean. But if you would, could you comment a little bit more on where you think this is in terms of job growth and vulnerabilities?
So one of the places that's getting really, really hit hard right now is developers, software engineers. I don't know if you've seen that, but which that doesn't really encourage people to graduate with that CS degree anymore. But I think the energies are misaligned there. I don't believe that is true. I believe that what it means is you're going to have to adapt as a software engineer. And there's a great YouTuber guy that I have never subscribed to a single YouTube channel in the history of YouTube and my involvement on YouTube, but I subscribed to this guy. And he had a great point. He's a developer, okay? And he talks about the AI industry. And he said, look, every phase of life and every single sort of phase of your career, you have to attune to what is really needed. Now, right now, AI slop is valued. Has everybody heard of that term, AI slop? So it's sort of the derogatory representation of the actual output of any AI. It's just sloppy, super sloppy. Us as humans have to wait, what is it trying to say? And be able to pull out the right words at the right places and be like, oh yeah, okay, that's what it's trying to say, I get it. And he said, look, you have to embrace the slop. And at every job interview, because there was another YouTuber he was commenting on that basically lost his job, and he went on all of these interviews and just keeps, getting passed, that there's no jobs out there. And he shared a lot of the details of that process. And so this other person, Mo is his name, was commenting on it. And he said, look, buddy, I wouldn't have hired you either. Like, you've got to create a better energy, when you're interviewing. Like, you have to solve for problems they didn't even know they had in the interview. Like, these are things that are going to separate you from the pack. And one of the harsh realities is, for a software developer, is you have to embrace AI and AI coding. So if you walk into an interview and his advice was real simple. He's like, look, you're going to Google for a job interview, vibe code a replacement for Google. I'm like, yeah, that's right. If somebody came to me and was like, Stu, I've rebuilt all of Wethos, and I did it using vibe coding, I'd say, show me. This is fantastic. This really shows me that you have a mind, an innovative mind that can take any tool that'll help you achieve the ultimate goal and use it. Now, here's the other side of the coin, though. So not just, hey, okay, built a replacement, with vibe coding, let's say, but now you have to explain the code to me. And that's not easy. So I would say, okay, great, now show me the code, pull up, cursor, whatever, VS Code you got, and now walk me through the code structure, the front end, the back end, if there's any middleware, and explain the functions inside of it. Because if you can't explain the AI slop, now you become completely dependent on AI to fix it. So, and we can't have that. I can't be spending, tens of thousands of dollars every single week because people are leveraging AI to build code that has multiple errors that require it to go back and to fix each error, which then creates more errors. Then you have to go back and feed that back in. I mean, it is a token generation hurricane. It is an absolute class 1, like tyrannical typhoon of tokens. So you have to be smart. You have to know it. You have to know how to manage AI to help you code quickly. And it can code very quickly, but it's not always the best. So anyway, those are the realities, I think, of the world. Now, things like, data analysts, there are some positions that will be impacted for sure. I think consulting is a big fear, McKinsey and Accentures and EY, PwCs, these guys are rightly so fearful, and they're getting on the train. They're engaging with AI and trying to figure out how do they get rid of that.
Yeah, I mean, think of that from a consulting study. You can almost prompt it correctly and rebuild what that study is going to tell you, right?
That's right, exactly. So part of what we're doing at Wethos is we go into a company and we identify your data and workflows so that we can replicate the institutional knowledge of your departments and functions so that you can start to begin to scale and augment whatever function that might be, audit, tax, compliance, whatever, consulting. Because I don't believe, no one's going to rely on AI to just make decisions blindly. It's too error prone. There's just no way. Maybe some of the new world models will come out to get it down to the 0.1 or 0.01 on hallucination, but until then, I mean, there's no way. You have to have humans in the mix to take full responsibility. And if you believe ultimately that there'll be the future worlds will be AI to AI, so an AI will sell to another AI that'll buy from that AI and go down the mix, if that's what you really believe, and many people do, then you absolutely need the unique representation of human thought inside that mix, or you will simply have nothing but average. I mean, how does Coke compete with Pepsi if they're following the same marketing plan, genius marketing plan that came out of, OpenAI or Gemini or any of these places? They're not different. They're all the same slop. So just put it in perspective a little bit, weather the storm a little bit, adapt, and be AI savvy.
Great advice. How about the audience? Anybody have something here? We'll go with you right here. Do we have
Here. I got one.
It's not like a question, it's just it's an observation which I have been because we are working on a capability testing on a real life project for our standard, we are doing the compliant city project, so we have done the capability testing on AIs, what exists, and it can be helpful for us in our project and all that. So there's a lot of basics have been covered by these AIs, if you look at it. And then at that point, I just observed that these graduates which you are getting out of these universities, the experience they used to get in first few years, we don't need that. We already have AIs providing that expertise and knowledge. So the biggest I feel is that we have to raise the standard of our education. Make sure these graduates, when they graduate, they are equipped with the advanced level of knowledge of AI, not the basic, because AI is already giving us basics. Mm-hmm. So that's why I wanted to really talk to, because Orange County is really active in this thing. So I think we have to raise that education standard to a level so when these graduates came out, they're already at advanced level to be hired immediately, because even with company like this, we don't need basics, expertise. So.
That's true until you get the bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to prove it out a little bit, because for every one question you ask of AI, it traditionally triggers at least 9 more questions. And so it's not a 1x, it's like a 9x the cost of what you think it will be, and it catches you off guard. In fact, a lot of people are getting the bills and starting to slow down their rollouts of AI because of this. So there is a point of diminishing returns, I think, but you're absolutely right. I agree with you with regard to the educational system and infusing AI, the knowledge of it, the leveraging of it, come with not just, hey, I know how to open a ChatGPT app, but really know how to leverage it, how to reduce the hallucinations, reduce the errors. And there are many ways to do them today. It's not easy, but you can. And so bringing all of that to bear, to me, has to be taught. It has to be assisted. And I think they will. I think educational systems will naturally have to step up because, going to school, a big part of it is to get a job.
Over here, in the middle. Sure.
I'm so inspired by you, Stu. My name is Hemiday, and I'm in AI marketing.
Nice.
I think one of the things that I'd love to hear you speak about is, because I'm a geek as well, and I vibe code and I create systems with AI, when you do know the foundations of start to finish and how to reverse engineer what you vibe coded, are you seeing that the people that apply the science could actually suffer from burnout? Because I think you can keep going and going and going, and when you're deep into it, innovating, are you seeing that being discussed as opposed to
Yes.
losing your job?
Yes, yeah, I am absolutely, because the most senior folks are the ones that are bearing the burden of understanding. The juniors, you sort of expect them not to understand, but the seniors have to take responsibility for the juniors, and so they tend to get burned out. I have multiple folks like that on my team, and I constantly have to tell them, like, leave this office. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I get there at 8, you're here. I leave at 6, you're here. Like, you need to have something else going on. But they get into these rabbit holes of AI vibe coding, et cetera, and it's very difficult to break out. So I do believe there is going to be a falling off stage at some point here soon, where the value of AI is not worth the risk to the individual, to the team, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I don't know where that balance is going to be yet, and I don't know when, but there will be a balancing. You can sort of feel it out there if you watch enough of the news and sort of the zeitgeist discussions. You can start to see it starting to happen now. People are not as highly valuing. Like take for example Opus 4.7, which was the latest Claude that came out. and even Mythos. I don't know if you've heard of Mythos, right? All the hype around that, which is silliness, right? It's all marketing garbage. But in both of those cases, it looks like it's starting to regress in terms of the errors are starting to increase, hallucination is starting to increase, the quality is starting to decrease. So we've said in the industry for many years now that it will hit a ceiling and not be able to get any better. It just, and you'll need to rely on these marketing angles like, oh, this model is it's so scary that we can't release it to the public because it'll be able to hack every website and company computer under the sun. Look, the current AIs can already do that. That's not a reason to hold that back. There's other reasons why. I think they're starting to see that there's a limit now to what you can do with text. And that's because that's what they've trained on. Just trillions and trillions of words. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm hopeful, and we're going to make it all through this quite well, actually, in my opinion, as humans. But we do have to make sure that we are savvy enough to be able to say things just like that. Like, can you, credibly go to somebody that thinks they know AI and say, that's not how I understand it. Are you open to a counter opinion on that? And then, no, that's not, look at all this stuff, look at all this material, look at all the testing, look at all this stuff. So anyway, that I think could be absolutely part of the education, which is, hey, let's use first principles here. What's the problem? Like, let's go to the original source of the problem and let's build back up and be able to show that, empower that critical thinking. I mean, it's one thing, so I was a psych degree major, I was a philosophy major, and I was a comp sci. And I had no idea, I thought it was schizophrenic, but I had no idea what I was going to use all that for. Today, it looks like a pretty cool combo for me to be able to communicate to other humans on the challenges of technology and AI. And so I've been happy about that. But again, critical thinking, power that muscle, to me, that is the most valuable thing here. And none of us do that.
So anyway, we've got to move on here. We're a little bit over time right now, and we're going to have one speaker come up and join me for 15 minutes. I'll introduce that in a minute. But I really wanted to thank Stu. I mean, you've been an inspiration to a lot of the entrepreneurs here. It's a model to follow. It demonstrates that you could build a very highly successful company here in Orange County. You got to go find the money someplace else, as Stu said. But it's doable. It's absolutely doable. And Stu's been a great friend to Octane, to the community, and I want to thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it.